Preseason football starts tonight. All the attention is back on the NFL. And on today's show, we're going to talk about two quarterbacks who have a lot of spotlight on them going into this season. NFL Spotlight starts now. Welcome in. It is the Thursday, July 31 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. The final day in July, the first day of NFL preseason football starts tonight. We have the Chargers, the Lions, the Hall of Fame game. We have four members going into the Hall of Fame here over the weekend with Jared Allen. We have Antonio Gates. We have Eric Allen. We have Sterling Sharp finally going in. Football is officially back starting tonight on NBC with those two teams coming up. But on today's show, we're going to talk about two specific quarterbacks who have a lot on their plate going into this year. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, football is back. It's here. And like I've said earlier this week, I do not care if it's backups. As long as I have football, we have Mike Tirico, I have Chris Collinsworth on my screen. That's all I need.
That's really all you seem to think about in life, Ari, is just getting those voices back in your head so you can just enjoy those moments. And I think for a lot of us, too, there's a certain sense of relief with the football season coming on. With everything else going on in the world, a space where we can sit down, relax, and all come together to watch some fun and some hard-hittingness and everything else that comes along with that. But today, we got to talk about two guys that are trying to potentially prolong their careers with the teams that they are with right now. Let's talk about some quarterbacks going into their third season, that being Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young. Right now, they're both kind of going maybe opposite directions, Bryce Young being on the ascent, and then Anthony Richardson maybe being on the descent. But let's go ahead and talk about the positive here. Let's talk about what's going on with Bryce Young, because Carolina Panthers EVP of football operations, Brant Tillis, told Joe Person of The Athletic that it is true that Bryce Young's on the ascent, but they're not ready right now to make any promises about a second contract. Young becomes extension eligible next season, and he's just entering this third season, like we said. You know, I'm sure Bryce wants to be able to get that contract and that mindset ready, but right now he's all worried about football. And it's very easy to say, do you think he's going to be able to get that contract, Ari? But what I'm more curious about is, what do you think he needs to do? What does he need to show on the field this year for the Panthers to feel comfortable saying, yeah, this is our guy for the future? Is it wins? Is it stats? What do you think those things are going to be that they're looking for?
Well, Ben, I think we have to back up for a second and just remember where Bryce Young was last year after 2 weeks, literally getting benched by Dave Canales. And the narrative going around, including myself, was his time in Carolina is over. It's not going to happen. You don't bench a quarterback with a new head coach after 2 weeks. But that benching was the very best thing that could happen to him. And it took a few weeks. Andy Dalton took over. Andy Dalton had a crazy good game versus the Raiders the next week, which made Bryce Young look even worse. And then eventually he came back in. And the way he finished the year last season, you saw a different Bryce Young, a more confident Bryce Young. The comp that we were getting when he came into the NFL during the pre-draft process was Steph Curry. And you kind of saw some of that as the season went on, and he looked very confident. The game against the Eagles, he was outstanding, even though they lost. The final game of the year, which had no playoff implications at all. Not really sure how many fans were watching it, but the Falcons and Panthers, Michael Penix and Bryce Young, they were going back and forth, offense scoring touchdowns in that game. It could be a sneak peek of what the future of the NFC South is going to be. The final 3 games of 2025 for Bryce Young, 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 612 passing yards. He looked way more confident, and Dave Canales really believed in him. And I tweeted this a couple of days ago. Going into this year, the Panthers offense might be a sneaky fun offense going into this year with Tedoroa McMillan, Adam Thielen, Jalen Coker, Xavier Legette, and Chuba Hubbard. They signed Rico Dowdle. The offensive line is above average. It's really about Bryce Young putting it all together and having a good year. So I don't think he's thinking about a contract right now. It's obviously very early, but he does become eligible after this season. There is a 5th-year option to decide on after this season. if they're able to continue to move forward and show that he could be a franchise quarterback, I think that is more than enough for them to be ready to commit to him long term. Because what he did at the end of last year, I mean, if we remember the rookie year that he was in and how bad it was with Frank Reich and the firing and all that. Meanwhile, CJ Stroud was playing like an MVP. The Panthers were quite literally the laughingstock of the NFL. New GM, new head coach comes in. They beef up the offensive line with some really, really good signings like the Robert Hunts and all those different people. And essentially, it's really come together all of a sudden. So, statistics, winning games. I mean, that division is, Tampa Bay has been controlling it the last 4 or 5 years, winning it every single year. I think Atlanta is going to be good. I think Carolina could very well be there as well. They have really done a good job, and give credit to Dan Morgan, their GM, of really revamping this entire roster via free agency and the draft. There's been a really good combination of both of those routes to build up this roster with veterans and young guys. And really, it's going to be up to Bryce Young this year. But his arrow is only pointing up. And if you would have told me this, that we're going to have this conversation last year in week 3, I would have called you crazy, because I thought his time in Carolina was over. They were going to trade him after the season. I heard murmurs out there that his camp at CAA was considering a trade request at the time. And now here we are with him basically becoming the franchise quarterback in Carolina. Even like his podium press conference, I've watched a couple of them so far here during training camp. He looks different. He's answering questions more confident. It's look at him in his rookie year. He looked shy and just not into it. It's a different person completely, and the transformation has been really cool to watch.
Okay, so the question then becomes, Ari, if you've got him in the building, you're already saying maybe this is the guy we want to commit to long term. Where do you see the line being for him if they were to come out the gate struggling? Is there a chance that they say, hey, okay, well, he's definitely not looking like the guy. Do we need to try to figure out a plan B here? Do you think that there is a certain amount of time in which they give him to say, yeah, dude, make it work? Or could you see them pulling the plug at some point this season?
I really don't see that becoming a possibility here. I think they're as all in as it gets with Bryce Young. Andy Dalton, who's been the backup now for a couple of years, wanted to come back to Carolina, even though he probably had better offers elsewhere to become a backup quarterback, because he has enjoyed his time working with Bryce Young and seeing his ascension from where he was to where he is today. So this is his team. He has really become more of a vocal leader as well. When you listen to Dave Canales speak, you could tell that he's working with a different quarterback than what it was a year ago. So I don't see that being in any consideration of here. Yes, quarterbacks struggle in this league. It happens. Not everyone's going to have, the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes type of year. But you look at their schedule to open the year, it's not a gauntlet like some other teams. I mean, the Jaguars week 1, Cardinals week 2. Both of those are road games, by the way. And then they have the Falcons, Patriots, Dolphins. Like, those are all winnable games for me. Like, none of those can I say right now, hey, that's an automatic loss, no chance. I think this is a team that I think could sneakily actually start the year with a pretty nice record of here. And I'm not even thinking about the idea of Bryce Young getting benched again. That's not even in any headspace right now. I think Bryce Young has his arrow pointing up. And what everyone talks about him as a number 1 overall pick, I think we're seeing it right now.
Well, yeah, and the other part of it, I guess, like you were saying with the schedule, they don't play a 2024 playoff team until week 8. So I guess he does have a decent amount of runway. I know, obviously, you're going to have a couple teams like the Cowboys in there where you expect them to be a little bit more revamped, but that all checks out with me. So now we have to flip to the other side of things and talk about the quarterback that was just taken 3 picks behind him with Anthony Richardson. Because while we've talked about the ascent of Bryce Young, we're very much looking at a rocky future, or what we perceived as a rocky future for Anthony Richardson. They brought in Daniel Jones this offseason, the veteran, which is still weird to say veteran Daniel Jones. Anyway, Daniel Jones is in there seemingly competing for the starting job. That's been the indication by everything that we see. The contract speaks for itself. They're definitely looking at him as an option for quarterback this year. But Chris Ballard has said to some people out there in the media, specifically Zach Kiefer of The Athletic, that they still feel like he could be the guy that they envisioned he could be. we've seen flashes of him looking impressive. The completion percentage has not been there. His accuracy is wild. His ability to stay on the field has been more than a problem. We've seen in college he didn't have a whole lot of reps, and that's kind of how it's reflected so far in the NFL, is just not seeing enough of him on the field. So my question for you is do you think that Ballard and the Colts really believe that even if this year, like he said, even if this year he's not the guy that he could become it next year, and they really see him as the future of the franchise? Or is this a little bit more posturing just to be able to keep a perceived value of him higher than maybe what it really is?
The leash on quarterbacks years ago used to be way longer than what it is right now. Nowadays, once we see you and we see what you got, you either have it or you don't. And of course, there's definitely a chance you go somewhere else and you finally find your success like Baker Mayfield did and Sam Darnold did and Geno Smith did. But if you don't do it with your first team, eventually they're going to move on. And the reality is, after the season was over, the Colts and now their late owner, Jim Mercer, put out a statement that Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen are coming back. But like we've said before on this show, when a team puts out a statement that you're coming back, that's usually a warning sign. You better improve the next year or else. So I don't think anybody is safe right now in Indianapolis. And the reality with Anthony Richardson is there's been a combination of things that have been a problem. First of all, he was supposed to be a project. And when we saw him in Florida, everyone said, do not throw him into the fire right away. But the Colts, who went through a bunch of years of veteran quarterbacks from the Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan and Jacoby Brissett and all these different quarterbacks, they wanted to find out right away, is this shiny object that we just drafted number 4, is he the guy or not? They threw him in the fire right away, and they realized right away that was probably a mistake. And he's had durability issues. He's had completion percentage issues. I mean, last year, his completion percentage was 47.7%, the worst in the NFL. He has missed 17 games due to injury. He has been benched. He's never started 4 games in a row. He's tapped out of a game. He had people in the locker room calling him out. There's been a lot of stuff. I mean, the king of Indianapolis, Pat McAfee, was calling him out. There's been a lot going on with Anthony Richardson, and to the point that the Colts, one of their number one priorities this offseason was to find a capable quarterback who can compete with him. Not the Joe Flacco's like last year, but somebody who is young and can actually push him and could go in there and play and potentially start the season. And of course, that was Daniel Jones signing that 1-year deal for over $14 million. And guess what? During minicamp, guess what happened? He got injured again, the shoulder injury. Now, luckily for him, he was back in time for training camp, not on PUP. They've been ramping him up. And, you hear all these reports and videos. He's doing great in training camp, but I don't know if this really makes sense. But Anthony Richardson is the type of quarterback who is able to show off in practice. Like, he's meant to do good in practice. That's what he is. But in the real game, it just doesn't look good. And that's been the big issue right now. So this is a real competition in Indianapolis. Like, it is truly something that could potentially go down to the wire. And Daniel Jones, say what you want about his career, but he's had moments. He's taken a team to the playoffs. He's won a playoff game. He has signed a $40+ million per year contract. He's been there. Like, he knows how to learn a playbook really quickly. He's been with a bunch of different offensive coordinators and different head coaches around the NFL. He is truly going to challenge Anthony Richardson. And the one thing that I'll say over here, Chris Ballard went on the record and basically said, what we did to Anthony Richardson, we were literally drowning him with information, and it was our fault. We messed him up. He also said on the record in his press conference that he would not be surprised if we see both quarterbacks starting this season. So I don't think any of these quarterbacks are actually going to start all 17 games this year. They want to figure out who is the best one, and it might just be we'll see 4 games of this guy, and if it's mediocre or medium, we're going to flip over to the other guy. Then if that one's also medium, we'll go to they might do a whole switcheroo throughout the year over here. So this is one, while I'm so confident about Bryce Young being the guy in Carolina, and they're all in on him, the actions of the Colts don't tell me they're confident in Anthony Richardson at all. Everything they've done so far this offseason, the last couple of years, tells me that they're not confident that he is the answer for this year or for the future. I'm an actions over words guy, and the actions so far definitely tell me that this is a situation right now where they don't know what they have in Anthony Richardson.
So we talk about what the Panthers have provided Bryce Young around him to help him succeed. Guys like Teteroa McMillan, you've got Chuba Hubbard in the backfield. You look at this roster for the Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, Michael Pittman Jr., Adonai Mitchell, you drafted Alec Pierce, Josh Downs. You've also even got our guy DJ Giddens back there in the backfield. Like, he has weapons, right? Like,
And you're
what do
missing
you
the big
make of it?
one.
Like, you've given him what you need, right, for him to be able to succeed to a certain degree, at least.
And you're missing the big one. Tyler Warren, drafted number 14
Yeah.
overall, the tight end, who is I thought he was the best tight end in this draft, was a monster at Penn State, could quite literally do everything, line him up wherever you want. So they also have an offensive minded head coach and things like they have everything that a quarterback, a young quarterback needs. And I'm still not out on Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones could be a starting quarterback in this league. I know you're laughing, Ben, but I believe in him. Like I
No,
really
no, no.
do.
Because, go ahead.
I think he could do it. Like I think it just got too much for him in New York. I think it just got to him. The fans, the booing, the coaching staff. Just there was a mess there with Dayball or Kafka. There was a lot there, and now he's here in Indianapolis with all these weapons. The offensive line in New York was also just garbage, and now here he is with this Indianapolis offensive line, which definitely has some suffering this year because they lost Ryan Kelly, they lost Will Fries, but they have pieces there. Bernard Ryman just got this very well deserved 4-year, $100 million extension. Like there are guys on this team. You mentioned all the weaponry. Like there are guys here. So, like I said, it is a true competition here, but this is a situation where many quarterbacks around the NFL would love to have these pieces as their offense over here. And for now, nobody has been able to take it and grab it and basically become the guy over here. And Daniel Jones, I guarantee you, is fighting and clawing for it. I think we've mentioned it on the show. I don't know if it's really been reported much, but the Vikings offer the exact same contract and possibly even more to Daniel Jones to go back to Minnesota. He went to Indianapolis because he thought there was a better shot to become the starting quarterback there because he knew JJ's never played yet, so the fans would love to see him. Anthony has played. The fans are basically ready to turn on him. So he knew he had a better shot over here in Indianapolis, and he went there. So both these guys are essentially in a situation right now where they're kind of fighting for contracts because Daniel, 1-year deal, and Richardson becomes eligible next year. So this is one where, they're both in the same room and they got to be friendly and whatever, but they both want to win that job, and it's going to go down to the wire.
Well, what I was going to ask here, and I don't want to put you on the spot and have to go through your whole memory bank, because obviously Daniel Jones had Saquon Barkley for quite a period of time. But would you say this is actually the best offensive weaponry that Daniel Jones would have ever had in comparison to what he had with the Giants?
Well, do we want to go over all the players that he had with the Giants? Because I could do it. It was not that impressive. I mean,
Sterling Shepard, Kenny Galladay.
Kenny Galladay. I mean, his number one receiver that playoff run was Isaiah Hodgins, who I don't think is even on the team right now.
Hey, we'll give him credit though. Darius Slayton, our guy. Darius
Slayton was on, who's one of his very best friends, and we had Darius Slayton on the show, and he discussed how difficult it was to see Daniel going through what he did last year. Like, it's not comparable though to Michael Pittman. Josh Downs might be one of the more underrated up-and-coming receivers in football right now. Alec Pierce needs an extension. He's also a stud. Adonai Mitchell has not proven it yet, but he's somebody who they're high on as a second-round pick, but I wouldn't put him into this category. And then Tyler Warren, I think, could become a monster in year one as a tight end. So, and the offensive line is much better than where it was with the Giants. That one year when the Giants made the playoffs, Andrew Thomas was healthy. Every other year, he's not been healthy. So you look at this team right now, it's definitely way better than what he had with the New York Giants. I mean, I have no doubt about that. The Giants went through so many different receivers, try to recycle guys. That playoff year, I remember one of the receivers they had, the name is escaping me, but he's that kick returner who was also with the Chiefs. Besides for Kadarius Toney, this other one who is not coming to my mind right now. Let's see if we can figure it out. It's going to drive me nuts that I can't figure this out. Richie
What
James.
Year?
There we go. Richie James.
Richie James also played for the San Francisco 49ers, right?
Correct. He was one of his main receivers. Like that is what he was dealing with. So, listen, Daniel had his own faults. He definitely had some weird interceptions and fumbles and whatever, but I think he's in a much better environment right now is what I'm trying to say. And the fans are not attacking him. If you remember after that week 1 game last year versus the Vikings when they wore those ugly jerseys, fans were waiting outside the locker room and literally booing him in his face. I think it got to him. I think it just got to him. So he's in a better place right now, but we'll see what happens with Richardson. We'll see what happens with Daniel Jones. But this is, like I said, a real competition over here. And whoever wins it, like Chris Ballard said, I think we're going to see both these quarterbacks during the regular season.
And the Colts want Richardson to win it, right? Like, you invested this into him, and it's only a third-year quarterback. Like, the goal would be for the guy you invested all of this in, who looks like he's got the Superman build, who has the big cannon for an arm, who can run through people, looks like a Cam Newton light at times. Like, they want this guy to be the one who wins it, right?
Yeah.
They want him to ball out.
I mean, of course. I mean, they invested a number 4 overall pick, and it was by this regime. So, yes. Let me just say this, by the way. The Colts have been not great when it comes to the team. I mean, the defense has been bad. They hired Lou Anarumo this year. The quarterback play has obviously been inconsistent. They've had some random dramas at times, including that Jonathan Taylor contract dispute. Despite all of that, they won 8 games last year and 9 games the year before. I mean, I think that's probably worth mentioning here. I don't know how they did that, but they were basically a game or two behind the Houston Texans for the division both these years. So they've been right there despite all these problems. And I think that's worth mentioning. And they've made improvements this offseason. I know this is not necessarily a Indianapolis Colts preview. We're going to do that in the coming weeks over here. But their defense was like not great last year. They moved on from Gus Bradley. They hire Lou Anarumo. They bring in Cam Bynum and Treverius Ward. Like, there are players on this team where it's like, how did they win 8 games last year? And if they could just get consistent quarterback play this year with all the players they do have, it's not the craziest thing in the world to say they could compete in this division, which is not great. I mean, let's just be real about it. So they need a lot of things to go right. That's for sure. But the fact they're able to win 8 games and 9 games the last couple of years with Gardner Minshew and Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson playing the way he did, there's something to say about that.
It's an interesting scenario. Which quarterback you think has a better year this year then, with all this being said, Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young?
No, I'll take the layup. I mean, it's gonna be Bryce Young, right? But
that sounds insane to say, the layup, compared to where we were at week 4 last year.
100% agree. I mean, both these quarterbacks were benched last year. Think about that for a second, right? But Bryce Young, I mean, you just sense something different with Bryce Young and what's going on there in Carolina and how they've empowered him and really made him feel like Alabama Bryce Young. He did not feel like that in year 1 and in the beginning of year 2, and something changed, something clicked. He went to the bench, and all of a sudden he looks like a different quarterback. I mean, again, I know most fans are not watching every Panthers press conference and they're not doing all these different things. I do. I know this is what I do for my life, but it's a different person. It's a different atmosphere. It's a different feeling. And the way he played last year, he literally had threw a touchdown, turned around before the ball got there. Like he was doing like crazy stuff that he would never do in his rookie year, stuff that he would have done in Alabama. So I just feel something different in Carolina and what they're building. And again, just going back to the point I made, I think that offense, which I think a lot of these names, maybe fans don't recognize some of them, like Jalen Coker. Jalen Coker is a real player on that team, like undrafted guy. He was awesome last year. Tedero McMillan, I know it's training camp. I know the pad just went on. Some of the catches he's making right now in training camp, he looks like the real deal. Like, I don't want to overreact, but he looks like the real deal. Adam Thielen is still a good player. Chuba Hubbard, one of the better running backs in football. The offensive line, it's pretty good. Dave Canales, great head coach. Like, there are things over here to like with the Carolina Panthers, and that's why I'll take him with that question.
There you go. All right. Well, we're going to be monitoring both those situations here with the coming weeks. There's going to be more guys, not necessarily always quarterbacks, that are really going to be trying to show out during the preseason. I'm kind of right there with you. I hate seeing all the look at this guy balling out during training camp. Look what he's doing here. It's all really noise. It reminds me, I'm always a basketball comparison guy, the Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons finally got his jump shot figured out. It gives me those vibes whenever I see any of that footage. That's obviously an extreme example, but I think we're going to be keeping a close eye on these two in particular, which is why you need to be subscribed on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Make sure you guys are watching all of our spotlight guests that we've had on. We had on Josh Metellus, good friends with Cam Bynum of the Indianapolis Colts, who we just spoke about a little bit briefly there, signing a fat contract, bringing him in there to help in that secondary. It's a football season. All right, we got football. Hopefully, we got the people tuning in for actually some interesting players I think will be playing in the game tonight. And, we might talk a little bit about it on Friday, kind of see if anything sticks out. But otherwise, we're going to continue to keep bringing you guys the news and getting you these spotlight guests as we do all the time.
That will do it here for our Thursday, July 31 edition of the NFL Spotlight. Joe, enjoy tonight's game. Chargers, Lions, Trey Lance, or Marion Hampton is going to play. Trey Harris is going to play. Might get some Hendon Hooker in Detroit. It's a good game. Dan Campbell, Jim Harbaugh, football is back. Enjoy it, and we will be back here tomorrow morning, Friday, August 1st, to wrap up the week and talk more about the NFL. We will see you then.